Welcome to the Network Podcast. Here we bring the best minds from the crypto industry to discuss the latest trends and share their personal and professional aspirations and struggles. Today I'm joined by Arjun, who's the head of research at LI.FI, the biggest bridge and DEX aggregator in the space. He's known for his in-depth research articles in the interoperability space, and he's also the host of the LI.FI podcast that focuses on builders and thinkers in that space. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Across or layer zero?
No comments.
Yeah, this one would get you into trouble. Hi Arjun, it's a pleasure to have you on the Network Podcast. And thanks for taking your time to talk with me. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks a lot for the invite. It's been a while since I did one of these, so I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, likewise here. So before we dive into LI.FI and some other topics I want to cover in this podcast, can you tell me a bit more about your background and how did you end up in crypto?
So I joined the crypto space in 2020, and that was also the year when I graduated from college. So I studied finance, and then 2020 was also the year of COVID. So all of us were sent back home, and like everybody else, like I went home, got on the internet and started like researching what's hot, and crypto was hot at that time. So I naturally got like interested into the topic, and few months into like my work from home journey, like the college that I went to, I studied finance, right? So I had friends in that college who were already working in crypto, and like they were doing different things. Like one of them had a hedge fund, one of them had a job at one of the companies. So the friend that had a job at the hedge fund, or like the friend that ran the hedge fund, he reached out to me and he asked me if I was interested in like joining him for the research side of things. So the goal with the hedge fund was basically to start a Moody's for crypto. Like we would basically grade crypto assets, like research Ethereum, and then write a report on it, and then try to summarize all of our findings into like one alphabet, right? Like A, B, C, D, based on our research. So I feel like that was the perfect way for me to get started in crypto, because like I basically got paid to research, right? So I would read about Bitcoin, read about Ethereum, read about Solana, and write long form reports on it. So I would spend a lot of my time just reading a lot of different crypto material. And I feel like that's the best way anyone can start, because if you're attracted by like something on crypto Twitter or the asset prices, like it's a very different onboarding journey, right? But if you're onboarded through like white papers, documentation, and like reading articles, I feel like it forms a strong core, which has always helped me. And honestly, that particular skill of researching and then writing about crypto has helped me till date, right? Because all the roles following that starting role that I've taken have always been research oriented, and more towards like market research. And then I would do market research and then like kind of consume a lot of information at the edges of the market, and then try to summarize all of my thinking, all of my thesis into one concise like article or white paper, or like use it for building products or like improving the product.
So basically from day one, you kind of notice that you really like researching, that you really like kind of studying a certain topic, analyzing, and that logically kind of guided you toward your further journey in crypto. And obviously today you're the head of research at LI.FI, which is a pretty big and important role. You mentioned you have a finance background, so you don't have like a tech or CS, programming background. I would say 80 to 90% of people that are in crypto have a programming background, right? Probably most of the people you talk with and work with have shipped code at one point in their career. So is this something that is problematic when you need to research, and do you kind of wish that you can go back and spend a few years coding?
I mean, so first of all, like I don't think the percentage of people that know how to code is that high in crypto. Um, but yeah, like when I started, I feel like it was more challenging because like of my non-tech background to kind of understand some of the topics. But again, right, like I've in general, my attitude towards anything in life is more towards if I spend the time trying to understand something, at some point I will crack the code, right? Like I will figure out how things work, and that's how I overcame the technical challenge, right? Like by just spending time reading different things, and then at some point your brain just starts um, matching patterns and figuring out like what's going on, and then like through common sense and by logic, like you kind of break down how things work out. Like I feel like I could not read code, but I could always understand like protocol architecture or how things work or how things are moving in the backend. Now, if I say that, okay, I do not wish to learn coding at all, like I would be lying, right? Like it's obviously a benefit to know how to code, but then it was never something that was prioritized in my life. So I never felt like, okay, now I really need to sit down and learn how to code because it's going to make or break my career or my life, right? And then with like the AI boom, the question of how important is it to actually learn how to code also kept changing. Like the degree of importance also kept changing because right now, if I actually want to understand code, I can go up to ChatGPT and like break down with its assistance what's going on. So I don't technically need a coding or a technical background to understand what's going on anymore. But I do feel like if I did know how to code and like think from an engineer's perspective, it's obviously a benefit because I have a lot of technical friends, and I do envy how like they think about systems, they think about like building products, or their brain just works differently. So let's just put it like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I can share a piece of personal story. So I also don't have a background in computer science or programming, although so I have a background in petroleum engineering. So it is an engineering background, but it's not like computer science. And I kind of taught myself how to code, but initially when I was doing it, and this is back in 2018, so a lot of time ago, I approached it too strictly. I was trying to bridge this gap between my knowledge and the computer science. So I was studying data algorithms, data structures and algorithms and so on. And looking back, I shouldn't have done this. I mean, it's not that it's not beneficial, but sometimes when you start, thinking on what do you need to know to do something, it's so broad, and then you can go into these rabbit holes in all sorts of directions, and it's impossible to learn everything. But yeah, definitely. In your case, when I look at like your research articles and also your podcasts, I actually wouldn't tell that you don't have like programming experience. So you ask really intelligent questions. You ask about standards and so on. So it's it doesn't show in.
I mean,
in short.
it's just a thing of time, right? Like I've spent the last 5 years of my life just studying this one subject, and then if you think about it, the last 4 years of my life just studying anything and everything that's written about Interop in general. And I've like read all the documentations, talked to all of these people for the last 4 years. So it's kind of like data in your head that you keep building up. And then as more and more data kind of comes in, and then you look at new information that's thrown towards you, like your brain already has so much information that pattern recognition becomes way stronger, right? Like I won't say it's just for Interop. Like I use that like pattern recognition thing in a lot of things in my life. Like even for playing a sport or like investments or towards my work or towards my writing or towards podcasting, right? So I think that's the core skill that if you spend enough time, your brain will just start matching things in your head, and then like you'll have more and more ideas, better understanding about everything.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like our brain, when you focus on something, our brain finds ways of connecting some dots, and just, it runs this process in the back even when you're sleeping, you're having dinner or going to the cinema. So yeah, I feel like it works like that. And also, as you mentioned, today it's much easier to cover some topic due to AI. So you can really ask it questions. It's like having a personal, basically, assistant that knows a lot about the topic. I've seen one of your posts where you mentioned that being in crypto, one day it's like fantastic, you feel like you're building the future of finance. This is the next big thing. This is going to be, in trillions or, quadrillions or whatever. And then another day, you just feel like, what am I doing here? This is all just an online casino. Can you share a few moments when you felt like we're really doing the next big thing, and then also some moments where you were like, I should have done something else. I should have done like just a regular finance job or something.
I mean, the regular finance path was never an option for me. So I've never felt like, okay, oh, I don't want to be in crypto. But there have definitely been moments where you feel super bullish and like super bearish. And then bull markets and bear markets are the two different ends of the spectrum, right? So I feel like in terms of when I've felt like proud of the fact that I'm working in crypto is definitely when like there's more and more adoption, and then there's more like Bitcoin is being adopted by the government, and then there's actual reinvention of some of the concepts in TradFi, and you're doing it on chain with like better rails for technology. So like in my head, there is no doubt that crypto is just better technology for like money. And then some of the core tenets of crypto, like transparency, the fact that everything is on chain, anyone can like confirm what's going on. Like I feel like that core tenet can be applied to so many things that I'm probably an eternal optimist that a lot of problems in the world in general can be solved with crypto if applied in the right way. So I've always felt bullish about where we're headed. Now, like there's also the opposite side of the thing, right? So that there are never moments, but there are like these black swan events where everyone is doubting the future of crypto, right? Like it's never nice to see things like the FTX crash, for example, or I don't know, like some of the hacks are never nice to see. Like whenever crypto rails are being used for the wrong purpose, like it's not nice. And like as an industry, it sets us back a few years. And then like in people's heads, the image just like goes back to, oh, crypto is a scam. So it's never nice to see like those things happen. But I don't think like either the good thing or the bad thing ever pushes me to the point where I feel like, oh, I don't feel like working in this industry, or to the point where I feel like, well, this is like crypto is the best thing ever, and this is what everything should run on. Like I feel like I'm definitely more towards the pro crypto side, but I'm also realistic that these things will take time to play out. So I don't really let like myself be let down or be like too excited about anything.
Yeah, that's a good attitude, and it's also kind of amazing that we can see all of this taking place in real time. You know, perhaps in 10, 20 years, when there will be a huge adoption of crypto, these people aren't even going to know about all of these details, that they might read about it in some book. But just being here, it's kind of insane. All of these crashes, all of these kind of crazy stuff going on. So I still believe it's a benefit, that we can experience everything, and it's just a normal part of a young industry that's maturing and that's kind of trying to fundamentally change things.
Yeah, I mean, things happen, right? Like if you look at a decade ago, there would have been so many hacks, and at that point, for those people when crypto did not have this much adoption, like that would have been an existential question. But at this point, we've reached a point where anything can happen, or like mostly anything can happen, and it won't make or break our industry. So I don't think we need to be too worried about it, and definitely have a long-term perspective about anything in crypto. Like things will never happen overnight, but if you look at the trajectory of what has happened over the last 15 years, like you can only be bullish about what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I completely agree there. Unfortunately, this is also not the stance that most people outside of crypto take. Even some of my friends that are Web2 software developers, that when I sit on a coffee with them, the first question they ask, is crypto dead? How's the technology doing? So they're very suspicious, and yeah, the public image is still pretty bad, right? Unfortunately, there are a lot of grifters in our industry. There is a decent amount of fraud, but there's also all the good stuff, all the builders, so all the people that are really pouring everything into this. Okay, now I want to touch upon a slightly different topic. So you're the head of research at LI.FI, and can you just speak a bit about LI.FI and just present it for people who might not be familiar on what LI.FI does and what's the problem that it solves in the crypto space?
I mean, so simply put, like LI.FI is an aggregator. Like we aggregate liquidity sources of all kinds. So we have DEXs, bridges, intent systems, mint and burn bridges. And then the problem that we're trying to solve is basically that crypto is multi-chain, right? Like when we started with Bitcoin, then Ethereum came out, then like Solana was there, and then suddenly now liquidity is spread across 20, 30, 40 chains. And then even across these 30, 40 chains, liquidity is spread across DEXs and all the different pools of liquidity, right? So LI.FI's job is aggregating all of this liquidity so that the users and companies in crypto do not have to worry about like how do we source liquidity from all of these different chains, and like how do we figure out or how do we abstract all of these complexities. So our job is basically making sure that your users get the best prices for any like swap that they want to do. It can be on the same chain, it can be on the on like cross chain, it can be cross virtual machines. So our job is basically working on abstracting all of these like crypto complexities, like removing the chain complexity, removing the virtual machine complexity, and then making sure the companies that are building products in crypto, like they have a very easy solution to plug and play into their business or like product to offer swaps to their users. And then there's like clear signs of adoption and like clear signs of the fact that this technology is needed because we have 500 integration partners. So if you look at something like Jumper, people can go on Jumper directly to swap across chains. Or if you look at products like MetaMask, Phantom, like their swap button is powered by LI.FI. So like all of these are signs that, okay, people want to swap and do things across chains, and there is a need for something that kind of like abstracts and aggregates in the backend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm the first person to go to Jumper if I have to send USDC or something to Solana or some other chain. Yeah. So really appreciate what you built. You mentioned today we live in a multi-chain world. There are probably too many L2s now today. But a few years ago, this wasn't the case. There was Ethereum, Solana was there. There were also few alternative L1s. And if I'm not wrong, this is the time when LI.FI started building, and you joined them. Mm-hmm. Did it take like a lot of conviction to keep on building this, although it wasn't clear at that point that we are going to be having so many chains? I guess the leadership at your company kind of they've seen this and they just they predicted this trend, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, like on a personal level, the trend was pretty clear, right? Like in 2021, um, there was more usage of Ethereum, and then as a user myself, like I was minting NFTs on Solana, or I was doing something on Polygon. So even in 2021, I was already on 3 or 4 chains, and at that moment you could see that, okay, I'm going to need funds on 4 chains. Like how am I going to move funds across different chains? And that is literally how I found out about Li.Fi, because like I was trying to move funds myself. And then if you looked at the roadmaps of like Ethereum was going towards a roll-up centric roadmap. So you could see that Optimism is going to launch soon, Arbitrum is going to launch soon, and then if this roll-up centric roadmap does come to life, there will be so many more chains. So I feel like it was definitely a bet when you look at it in hindsight. But the thesis was pretty clear and pretty simple. That the fact that there will be more chains and more fragmentation and more bridges to serve this like need for users to move funds across chains, like it was pretty obvious. But of course, it in that moment, or like over the last 4 years, it takes a lot of like execution and a lot of conviction to keep building throughout like the good phases and the bad phases, right? Like not every time the volumes are high, or not every time the company is winning all of the deals. So you have to figure out how do you go from literally zero in volume to like we do 3 billion in volume per month at this point. And then at some point we had zero, like when I joined we had zero integrations. So going from that to 500 integrations, like that's a big leap. But then the thesis has never changed, that the fact that the ecosystem is multi-chain and there will always be fragmentation.
Yeah, yeah. It does seem obvious looking at it today, but yeah, it was probably wasn't as clear in 2021. But that kind of leads me to my next question. So, what are Li.FI's competitors? What are your biggest competitors, and how are you positioned against them?
I mean, so like our competition has also changed over the years in a way, because we're an aggregator. So like how we started out, we primarily positioned ourselves as bridge aggregators, right? Like we aggregated bridges, and then we also had dexes so that we could do swap plus bridge. And then over time, like we've continued to add more and more things on top of it. And like the Interop ecosystem has also matured. So at that point, there were a lot of players, and then over time, that competition has also fizzled out. So there are other aggregators in the market, and then because the function of an aggregator is similar to like the individual providers as well, so you could look at the individual bridge players, or like the individual dexes, or anything that can facilitate an exchange as competition. So it never really stops at like 1 or 2 players. It's basically anyone that can take order flow away from like you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely makes sense. So you mentioned you have a lot of partners, a lot of monthly volume. How does actually how do you make money, right? What's the revenue source for the company?
So on the B, so we have a B2B business model, right? So if our partners make money, we have different levels of revenue share agreements with them. So basically, like if the partner doesn't take any fee until very recently, like we did not add any fee on top. But slowly, as like crypto is maturing and like revenue is becoming more and more important, like we've worked out different. Trouble hearing you. Could you repeat that? Like we've worked out different models for revenue, where like we've basically experimented different revenue sharing models with our partners. And then on the supply side, like we also have revenue sharing models with the bridges and dexes and like the different players. So we've really tried to um, monetize in a way that does not impact the prices for the users. So the users always get the best price, but then if we're bringing order flow to the bridges or to the dexes, like we can monetize on that. Or if the partners that integrate us, like they're able to monetize because of us, like we've had like revenue sharing agreements with them. So it's a pure like B2B business model.
Yeah, makes sense. And again, if you look at any startup in like an emerging technology, the goal is adoption, the goal is growth, the goal is to polish the technology, obviously, not to get as much revenue as possible. I mean, even most bridges like messaging protocols like layer 0, I don't think they take any fee. They might turn some fee on, but I mean that's not the objective at kind of the initial stage of the company, is just to get to polish the tech.
I mean, companies go through multiple stages, right? Like if we're very focused on optimizing for revenue in the early days, like that might mean missing out on order flow or like missing out on some of the deals. So in the beginning, of course, like deals are more important. And that's how you build leverage over time so that you can eventually monetize it once you have enough like value added services, enough reliability, comprehensiveness. Like once you have all of those things in place and there's like you've proved that there is clear value here, you can then monetize on that service that you provide.
Yeah, definitely agree there. So you spent a lot of time researching in the interoperability space, and for outsiders, when people look at the interop space, there's a lot of different terms like omnichain, cross-chain, multi-chain. There are probably a few others that I haven't heard of. Are these just made-up words? Do they mean the same thing? And are these kind of expressions just used to push a certain narrative by a certain interoperability protocol? Is that the goal sometimes of these of these expressions?
Honestly, it depends on your frame of reference, right? Like you started that statement by saying when I look from the outside at this stage, if you're just starting to look at the Interop ecosystem, you might think, okay, cross chain and then multi chain. There are so many words, but I've been here for 4 years, right? So at some point, all the teams were basically just trying to explain what their products do. So, like I said, our thesis from day one has been that the future will be multi-chain. So at that point, we're not thinking about like, oh, can we brand the multi-chain thing? Like, does it make any sense? We're basically trying to explain the fact that, okay, the future will have multiple chains, and then the multi-chain is just like a shorter form of that word. And if you look at the word cross-chain, it's pretty much just like explaining the fact that you can do things across chains. So it might look like everyone is trying to be too creative with some of these things, but honestly, sometimes it's super simple and people are just trying to explain how their products work. But like words are powerful and they can be used for marketing. And if you look at the ecosystem right now, because we're like much more mature, there are more mature marketing strategies as well. Like if you look at what Base did with the word on chain, like they removed the dash in the middle, right? So Across did the same thing with cross chain. So if that format of cross chain sticks, like Across will benefit from that. So that is brand building. Or if you look at the term omni chain, like Layer 0 kind of came up with that to describe the fact that their technology works on any chain, like every chain, but they kind of do have like brand presence over that particular term. And then you'll similarly see teams trying to do the same thing with the term multi-chain. Or if you look at like the best example, honestly, is also Interop act, like what we did over the last 12 months. Like it just happened naturally. But if you think about it, like as soon as somebody saw Interop ACC on their feed, like they would suddenly think about LI.FI through that, because like I've been the one who's been vocally pushing that on Twitter. So these things are definitely part of marketing, but sometimes I feel like they come out very simply through just like fucking around and finding out.
Yeah, definitely. You just kind of something just pops into mind. Someone says it, and then it kind of becomes this
But I feel
largely
like
used term.
over time you do get better at identifying what can kind of stick on, right? Like what has staying power. I think that is definitely something that I've tried to get better at, because when I started, like I was also super young and like just starting out in crypto, so I did not understand these things better. But if I look back at some of these things, I definitely see more opportunity on how someone can, really build a brand around literally just words or colors or some of these things. So I definitely see how there's like opportunities to build a brand, to build a narrative based on like simple things that we would do just like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Before joining crypto, I also didn't know much about marketing. I don't have like any education on marketing. But then, for instance, in my line of work, which is security audits, there was this guy that coined the term gas bad during the days when Ethereum was still the most popular chain, and he was optimizing contracts for gas, and he just used this gas bad, and it was the best marketing strategy. So everyone knew about him. He was also quite funny and witty and so on. So that helped. But words matter. Words really matter, especially if you can use them correctly. Like and if it sticks with people. So what do you think? Which interoperability protocol has the strongest brand presence right now
Mhm.
in crypto? What would be your winner?
I mean, like honestly, you should tell me that, because like my opinion on this question at this point is basically there are not too many teams that are active in Interop anymore. So if you look at like the volume numbers or the brand presence or like team presence in general, there are like six teams that are loud and like in your face. By in your face, I mean like they have mindshare. So honestly, it's not that hard. There are 6 to 8 teams that are even in a very strong position at this point. Like if you asked me this question 4 years ago, everyone was fighting for attention. But at this point, I feel like the Interop ecosystem has settled so much that the answers are pretty clear. Like who's active, who's still building, who still has mindshare, who still has distribution. Like it's not that hard to find.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from the outside, I would say there is no clear winner. I prefer layer zero just because I've done a lot of security reviews, a lot of engineering around them. But across is pretty popular. Okay, intents are also pretty popular these days. Then there's wormhole, hyperlane, dbridge, and a few others. But I don't think there's just like one company that sticks out. I say it in a sense, if you think about like AMMs and kind of decentralized exchanges, the first thing that comes to mind is Uniswap, and they're kind of the gold standard. I don't think there is something like this in the Interop. If I had to choose, it would be layer zero, but this is just like a personal
I mean, it makes
opinion.
sense. Like, if you compare anything to Uniswap, like Uniswap is literally been touted as the first page that anyone in crypto kind of goes to interact with, right? So they definitely deserve their position, and they've done a great job like building a brand around it. They still have like tons of volume, so it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, they're really the gold standard. Yeah, it's hard to beat them. Uh, okay, let's just step back and talk about Li.Fi a bit more. So I think you've announced maybe a few months ago or half a year Li.Fi 2.0. Oh, so can you just tell us the vision of this next iteration of your project? What are you building? What problems are you looking to solve?
I mean, so if I were to summarize what's the vision for Li.Fi 2.0, like that, there's just one word, right? Like it's literally expansion. And within Li.Fi 2.0 scope, we're doing like multiple things. So we have the intent system that's coming out, so that would open up Li.Fi's marketplace model to solvers. So like until now we've had dexes, we've had multiple bridges, and we've had solvers through these systems, right? But with the intent system, we can have solvers directly tap into the LI.FI order flow, which is like a win-win for everyone, because solvers get the order flow and LI.FI gets like more and more liquidity sources to offer the best prices. So the intent system is definitely one of the biggest parts of LI.FI 2.0, because we feel like that's the natural extension of our marketplace aggregation model, and that's going to go live in the next 4 to 6 months. And then on top of that, like we've been building more and more like abstraction tooling. So at the Interop event in Berlin like last month, we also announced Zaps. So Zaps, like LI.FI Zaps, will basically allow any on-chain action, right? So right now, you can do swapping plus bridging, but like with Zaps, you can do swapping plus bridging plus like deposit in the same transaction. So we've built our own tooling to enable that. So LI.FI 2.0 is like a combination of intents, Zaps, and more tooling that will help us like expand to new chains, get there faster, get there quicker, and add more liquidity sources. So like our goal is basically expansion and continue to do that until we offer like the best prices to our users.
Yeah, makes sense. And you're also kind of taking the bet that this intent architecture will be something that will be highly adopted. And we've seen with the cross, it takes 1 or 2 seconds to bridge assets across chain. Although some other players on the market, like the Layer 0 team, Stargate team, they would claim that kind of the underlying architecture is not going to be intent based. It's going to be kind of this traditional message bridges. But I guess this just solves another problem, which is how can you efficiently and with like 100% certainty move liquidity across chains. And then you also have this whole thing with intents, which is perhaps more focused on speed and user experience. So I guess LI.FI is more kind of moving into this direction, right? Like user focused retail.
I mean, so our thesis with aggregation is that there is no one size fits all solution, right? So intents have proven to be super useful for super fast transactions, but then as soon as you like try to do $1 million in size, like intents can only facilitate that type of transfer if there's liquidity, right? So you need something like a Stargate which has pools of liquidity, or there's also new technology with the token standard. So there are some tokens that you can just mint and burn across chains without any slippage. So LI.FI's aggregation stack will like offer all of these different types of bridges, and that's been our thesis from day one. Like support all the different types of bridges and make sure there's like a solution for every type of order. And I feel like that's never going to change. Like there is no solution that can cater to all types of use cases.
Yeah, makes sense. So you do believe that kind of in a way Interop has been solved, and that kind of the next step is just using these existing existing solutions, and just now maybe focusing more on the user, more on this account abstraction, and so on. So is this kind of your position?
I mean, so as an absolute statement, I don't agree with the fact that like Interop is solved, because you cannot solve an infinite problem, right? Like there will always be more chains to connect, or like more routes to service, or like more tokens that you can add to your routing. So I feel like Interop is an infinite problem. Like as long as there's more activity on the chain side of things, Interop will always have more work to do. So I feel like from that very absolute perspective, nobody can solve Interop because it's a never ending problem. But I do agree with the fact that the foundational infrastructure has been made, right? So if you want to do anything on chain, Interop has matured to the point where there is tooling for every type of problem. So I feel like we've done the foundational work, and even if you look at the rate at which new products are coming up, or like teams are shipping new developments, or the type of developments that they're shipping, it's optimizations and things that are added on top, right? Like nobody is reinventing the wheel anymore. Like the last big thing that we had was probably intents or the token standards adoption. So I feel like from that perspective, the foundational layer is definitely solved. All of the teams that are still working on Interop are working on optimizations, and then like what more can they do, and they're also focusing on like the distribution and adoption side of things, which I feel is the next leg of this like interop adoption cycle.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. My opinion is kind of divided. You mentioned like 6 to 8 messaging protocols are the winners, and they're going to be there in 10, 15 years. I still think we're going to see other iterations, even new, just because this is all like kind of public infrastructure. All the blockchains are public. Tomorrow some other player can come and build a new messaging protocol, and although it might not introduce like new novel architecture, it might have like better go-to-market strategy, and just better influence, better business sides. So it even might replace or get ahead of some of these existing players. But yeah,
I mean, that is always
let's
possible.
see.
Like it's an open market, and honestly, like things can change for sure. Like imagine if there's standardization on Ethereum's protocol level, right? Like there's standards that get adoption that kind of reduce the need for third-party interop within the EVM ecosystem. So things can change overnight in a way. And there can be new players, but I feel like we've definitely reached a point of maturity where the rate at which these changes happen has definitely slowed down, and it's only going to get slower and slower. And it's more about the optimizations and like working on the distribution side of things, or like how do you get more revenue out of it, or how do you like build better rails, build better connectivity. Like these are the problems Interop teams are kind of working towards at this point.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next problems that need to be solved. Is there something in this interoperability space that would surprise people that are outside of this niche? Is there something like really specific that you can share?
I mean, so I feel like, okay, let's say if someone is in crypto, like I feel like they don't understand the surface area that Interop touches, because there are like countless chains, right? Like, and every chain has its own sort of development environment, RPCs, and the tooling that goes with it. So I feel like people do not understand how complicated it is to build an interop protocol, and how much work and domain knowledge it requires to actually build something in Interop. Like Interop got a bad rep early on because bridges kept getting hacked. There's a reason why bridges kept getting hacked, right? Like it's not easy technology to build. So I feel like people always underestimate like how hard it is to build anything that has seen traction, that is like scaled in Interop. And people outside of crypto have no idea of how many chains there are in crypto. So like every time I try to explain what I do for a living, or what LI.FI does for a living, I have to start with the fact that there are so many chains, and then like there are so many assets on different chains, and then people move funds across chains. So beyond crypto, I don't think people would understand the magnitude of what's going on in crypto, and like what sort of like role Interop kind of plays in helping these things stick together.
Yeah, I assume it's very messy, right? Supporting you even, I mean, something like Stargate or across from a technical standpoint, when you need to integrate new chain, these are new languages, new blockchains, new ways of working. I mean, these teams are really pushing the limits. It's not it's not easy to kind of integrate all of these separate systems. So it's a huge engineering leap, definitely. Okay. Now I want to move a bit from the technical topics and interoperability, and just ask you a bit about podcasting and researching in general. You're my first guest. I just started this podcast, and you've been a veteran, I would say, in this space. You've been holding podcasts for what? It's probably a few years now, right?
No, I mean, it's just been a year at this point.
It's 1 year. Okay, then you did a lot of episodes in that single year.
There's one every week, so like there have definitely been a lot of episodes.
Yeah. So the frequency is good. Let's just start from basic questions. So how, when you have a new guest, how much time do you actually spend researching your guest, and do you stalk him on social media? You know, I must admit I did the same for you and for some other guests I'm having in the next weeks. I mean, obviously I want to get to know the person. I want to see if he's more interested in kind of soft topics, marketing, business, or if I'm having a technical guest, maybe he just talks about technical stuff, period. He doesn't talk. How do you approach this?
I mean, I feel like every guest and every episode is very different, right? Like, so with every guest, I try to come up with a theme for the episode, and to get to that point, I kind of have to know a lot about the guest, right? So at this point, the good thing is that I know a lot of people in Interop because I've been working with them for the last 3-4 years. So with some guests, I always just try to, don't even look at their tweets, don't even look at what they're posting, but just sit down by myself and try to come up with questions, because I feel like that's where the genuine curiosity kind of takes over and you ask better questions. But that can't be true with every guest, right? Like, there are some guests where I have no context about what they've been talking about, or like how does their technology work in the back end. So I do spend time kind of going through all of their tweets, all of the different talks that they've given, all of the different podcast appearances. So it can take literally from like 1 hour for someone that I know already and I've talked to multiple times, and I know like the flow of the conversation in my head. But with someone I've not talked to, it can take the whole day, and I won't be surprised, like, even after spending the whole day kind of try to come up with questions and themes, if I'm not able to come up with like proper questions, because like, I don't know, at least how I think about things, I do like to have a particular theme and then try to make it more interesting for myself, because I feel like if it's not interesting for me, like, I cannot expect anyone to watch or listen, right? So I try to make it more interesting for myself, and that does require a lot of like background work and a lot of just figure out like what is that person opinionated about, so that we can talk about those opinions on that call.
Yeah. Do you get inspired by some of the popular podcasters? Like, I'm just going to spit out a few names. I don't know, Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, or some of these guys, or do you ever listen to?
I don't get inspired per se, but I'm definitely a consumer of like different types of podcasts, right? Like, the reason I started doing this in the first place was because like I do consume a lot of podcasts, even though the rate of consumption has probably gone down a little bit recently. But I'm definitely a consumer, so I don't get inspired per se, but I definitely keep up with like what are people doing, how are they approaching things, like what are the different styles that like we can learn from, basically. Fine.
You mostly cover guests from a perspective of the project that they're working on. Have you perhaps tried changing this format or experimenting to a longer format like 2 hours. I guess it can be hard to get people to book 2 hours, or perhaps being like podcast more focused on their personal stories or kind of business oriented. Do you see like evolution in the format of your podcast?
I mean, yeah, of course. Like honestly, I feel like I keep changing with every episode. Like I'm one of those people that cannot plan in advance for too many things. Like I cannot tell you what's going to happen 2 years from now, but I can definitely tell you how I'm approaching things over the next 3 to 6 months. So even with like podcasting, for example, I definitely have an approach, but I'm very nimble with what's working and like what's not working. Can I try different things? Because I feel like the reason why I started this in the first place was because there was not enough good representation of the interop ecosystem, right? Like if you look at the traditional media in crypto, like the Bankless or like the roll up course, they didn't really cover interop too well, or all of the interop ecosystem and the different players did not really get much of a stage to talk about their story. And I started doing this last year before the video content meta kind of like took over crypto Twitter, because I felt like, okay, Interop deserves a better stage because these are some of the smartest people that I know, and they're working on something so important for the crypto ecosystem that their stories need to be heard. And that's how I started, right? So I started covering different projects, and then kind of like figured out my way around how do I like to approach it, because I'm not an expert, so I'm learning on the go. And like you mentioned, the uh, the episodes where like I can cover more personal stories, I've done that as well. Like the one with Philip, it was more about his journey, but then I always somehow find a way to connect it to Interop, because I feel like that's the core of the podcast. And that's my audience, or that's why anybody who's tuning in would listen to this. But I'm definitely like more open to now experimenting with newer things and newer topics. And I'm like trying to figure out how to make that happen, because like I recorded recently with Arjun from Everclear, and the conversation was mostly about AI, but then we also did cover like AI in Interop. But if you once you check out the episode, like it's literally mostly about AI and the impact of AI, and then like AI in crypto. So it's definitely not an interop focused episode, but it's with someone from the interop ecosystem. So I'm trying to like lean into more of what I find interesting, and then kind of cover the personal side of things, the interop side of things, and then like the different perspectives. But I'm definitely open to change the format at some point if that works better, or I feel like that's what I'm more interested in.
Yeah, makes sense. If it's not interesting for you, it's very hard to do it with passion. It's very hard to just be there and ask questions if you're not genuinely interested in the topics. One kind of last question on this segment is you interview a lot of influential, really successful people like the founder Philip of your company, Stargate lead, the founder of Across. These are industry leaders, right? Have you kind of felt, if you look at yourself 1 or 2 years ago, do you kind of feel this has also influenced your thinking and the way you look at things, since you probably don't just record the video later on, you might edit it, you might check it, so you're kind of becoming the average of these people that you talk on a daily basis? Have you seen some change in just your personal like perspective? Do you feel like you have matured?
So there's no like specific change, I would say, but like you said, you definitely learn from the people that you're talking to, right? So there's definitely more and more kind of sharing of ideas, sharing of thinking. So I learn from like how people think about things, and I feel like more personally, it has helped me build better relationships within the Interop ecosystem, and also to have better conversations. Like, I feel like if there's one specific skill that has particularly improved because of that, it's basically asking better questions and have better conversations on the podcast or outside of it, right? So I think that's one of the skills where I feel like I have improved, or I'm like improving constantly. And you do learn from these people. Like, these people they're so smart, they've done so much, they've seen so much. And one of my key takeaways from all of these episodes is that everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different way to approach things towards like building projects, or like how do they manage their day-to-day life. That I feel like nobody needs to copy anyone. Like, everyone has to figure out what works best for them. So I would say that's been my biggest takeaway, and just applying that to my daily life and like trying to figure out what actually matters to me, where do I spend my time, how do I approach my work, and just keep improving because of it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, I think we're going to kind of wind down at this point. I just have two more questions, which are really chill. What is a book or a movie or TV series you think everyone should watch? What's your favorite?
Honestly, like, I'm not one of the people that does favorites, because I feel like it's so hard to figure out that one movie or like that one book that changed your life, right? Like, there are so many good movies and books. Um, but if I have to answer that, like, I would probably say the book that I'm reading right now. So I'm reading this book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. It's written by Neil Postman, and it was published in 1985. And the book talks about how like television is basically changing public discourse, and how the society is going from like a print first society where people read a lot and wrote a lot, towards like an entertainment based society where people just watch a lot of television and consume a lot of information through television, right? And if you think about that, this is literally how we talk about Instagram and like social media today, and how people are moving more and more towards uh, consuming content through social media instead of like writing or movies, because the attention spans are lower. So I feel like that's one of the better books that I've read in my life, because one, it's written 40 years ago. So it's very interesting to see that humans were facing similar issues even 40 years ago, but they just had like a different set of problems, right? So it does open up your perspective on a lot of things. So I would definitely recommend reading that.
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite books is The Brave New World, which also deals on a more like philosophical level of kind of pleasure, how people kind of blind themselves with pleasure, just indulge in pleasure, and then don't do all of these things that might require some effort but are actually more satisfying. And as you mentioned, when you didn't have television, when you didn't have mobile phones, internet, you would just read, you would talk more. People were much stronger verbally. I also see some older people in my country. They're really verbally, much better than the younger generations. But yeah, this is perhaps a problem and struggle that we'll have to deal with for the rest of our lives. But yeah, hopefully, just getting awareness on this is really powerful also. So yeah, I'll take you on this suggestion. We'll
I
definitely
might
check.
actually have it somewhere on my desk. Like, I can probably show it. Oh, wait.
Yeah. So I
You
see
have
the
it right
cover.
there.
Okay, amusing ourselves to death. Okay, cool. I might start this one. Okay, to wrap up, I have two choice questions. So I'm just going to give you two options, and you need to choose one or another. It's really simple. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so Ethereum or Bitcoin?
Wait, Bitcoin the asset, but Ethereum the chain.
Okay, okay. Mountains or the beach?
Mountains for sure.
Mountains, okay. Wine or beer?
Beer. Like beer on a
Beer.
hot day is the best thing.
Okay, okay. Across or layer zero?
No comments.
Yeah, this one would get you into trouble. Espresso or coffee with milk?
Espresso any day. Like black coffee any day.
Okay, okay, cool, cool. Cardano or XRP?
I would say XRP because like XRP was the first token that I ever bought in crypto.
Okay, okay, cool, makes sense. Work from office or work from home?
Work from home because I can balance my life better. But then at the same time, I do want to keep finding opportunities to spend time with my team.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Reading or listening?
I have phases. I do both a lot. Right now, I'm reading much more than I'm watching or like listening. But I try to do both on a daily basis.
Okay, okay, so it's split. Okay, that would be it. This is the last two choice question. I leave the enigma across or layer zero for for kind of private
The right
Telegram
answer is
conversation.
LI.FI. Like if I have to choose,
LI.FI.
I choose LI.FI.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Arjun. It was amazing talking with you, and I learned a lot about LI.FI and other topics we covered. And yeah, again, thanks for coming to the Network Podcast.
Anytime. Thanks for hosting me.